that's what's led to so many deportations. One of the things it provides is it's very, very difficult to stop a deportation. Prior to '96, we had something called suspension of deportation. And if you'd been here 7 years and you could show hardship to yourself or to a spouse, parent, or child who's legally here, you could get a green card based on your time here. And if you didn't have the 7 years when you were arrested but you were close, you could delay the process when you had the 7 years. Well, that was eliminated by the '96 law. Now we have something called cancellation of removal. Very, very, very difficult to win. Over 90% of them are denied. In order to win, you need 10 years before you're arrested by immigration. Number two, you need to show exceptional and extremely unusual hardship to your qualifying relative. The hardship to the applicant himself or herself does not count. So that form of relief, very, very, very difficult to win. And there's only 4,000 of those that can be granted every year. And as you heard Mark and others say, there's 11 million undocumented. Do the math. If we did 4,000 a year, how long would it take to go through the 11 million? We're made up numbers. A couple thousand years maybe anyway. So the reality is the undocumented population has grown because it's gotten more and more difficult to obtain status. How many of you have heard of Tony and Janina Wazalewski or saw the movie Tony and Janina's American Wedding, a deportation love story? Tony became a U.S. citizen, but Janina was blocked from returning to this country for 10 years because of 212A9B. A section of the law that was enacted in 1996 that said if you were here undocumented for a year or longer and left, you couldn't come back for 10 years. So Janina lost all her appeals, had to go back to Poland, took her 6-year-old son Brian with her, he was born in Chicago, and they tried to establish a life there where Tony tried to bring him back. We applied for the waiver, it was denied several times. After 4 years, we were finally able to bring Janina back. But fortunately, she qualified for the waiver. Many people do not, because of another section called 212A9C, also enacted in '96, which says if you were here illegally, left and tried to come back in illegally without papers, which is what happens with many people from Mexico, then, or to get a green card, even if you have a U.S. citizen wife, 5 U.S. citizen kids, the only way you can get it is to leave for 10 years, and after 10 years, ask for permission to come back. Got a young person in my office now, a client of mine, very successful businessman, has his own company, has 3 U.S. citizen children. He petitioned for his wife to get her green card. She went to the consulate in Cedar Wars and they told her, you are 212A9C because 10 years ago you crossed, went back to visit your sick father, and came back in again. So the only way she can get her green card is to wait there 10 years. She's been there 18 months already. At first they had the 3 kids living with her, but it's just too dangerous for these young children. So finally brought her back. This guy is trying to run a business, trying to raise 3 kids, living every day in fear of something's going to happen to his wife. She can't now come back now for another 8.5 years. Never convicted of a crime, not a drug dealer, not a criminal, but under this '96 law, she cannot come back for another 8.5 years. So this law is horrific. And go on and on. Another provision says there shall be no judicial review of many decisions by immigration judge. It lists a whole list of categories. So in other words, if an immigration judge denies someone cancellation removal in the exercise of his discretion or her discretion, we cannot get that reviewed in federal court. Something we never faced before in 1996. So what I do every year on September 30th, and you might want to consider the same, is I don't eat, I fast. Because I think about all the people that have been hurt by this, and I get sick to my stomach, and I just don't eat. So if you want to fast with me, September 30th, that's what I do. I just don't eat that today. My little way of trying to have solidarity and connection with the people that are suffering. So let's go forward. A couple other things that have happened since '96. We had a law passed in 2005 called the Real ID Act. Another terrible law that makes it far more difficult to win political asylum in the United States. Terrible law. Shortly after that law was passed, a bill passed the House of Representatives that had been introduced by Congressman Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin. And that bill, which passed the House of Representatives, which Congressman Dubinsky voted for, made it a felony if you came to the country illegally or if you overstayed a visa. Or, for example, if you were here at St. Xavier University on a student visa and you dropped below your course load. That would make you a felon. That bill passed the House of Representatives, fortunately did not pass the Senate. But what it did, you might remember 2006, what happened? It awoke the sleeping giant. We had massive demonstrations, hundreds of thousands of people marching in the street for immigration reform. Here in Chicago, LA, New York, Miami. Then, in 2007, Senator McCain and Senator Kennedy, two people pretty polar opposites on just about every other issue, came together and co-sponsored the Kennedy-McCain bill, which would have helped many, many, many people come out of the shadows and would have led to a legalization program and some of the components we see in our legislation that we'll talk about in a second. But what happened? It was filibuster. There were 55 senators in favor of it, but you need 60 to break a filibuster. And so it died. Summer 2007, and then, of course, Senator Kennedy. Now, what's happened since then? Well, on October 8th, 2010, a bill called the DREAM Act passed the House of Representatives. Who knows what the DREAM Act is? Raise your hand. The DREAM Act was the child of Senator Durbin for many, many, many years, but he never got it passed in the Senate, and didn't get it passed in the House. But thanks to a coalition of a lot of people working very hard, December 8, 2010, and I happened to be there that day, it was a wonderful, wonderful day, it passed the House of Representatives. But what happened? December 21st, it died due to a filibuster. Senator Kirk, our senator who had just gotten into office a month before, voted against cloture. In other words, voted against the DREAM. So shortly thereafter, Senator Durbin and 21 other senators sent a letter to President Obama asking him to not deport anyone that would qualify under the DREAM Act, had it become law. And we didn't hear anything until later that year, the memo on prosecutorial discretion came back. And that memo allowed for the first time ICE prosecutors to not proceed with deportation if there were compelling humanitarian factors. And we've seen that exercise somewhat. And then on June 15, 2012, a little over a year ago, the President signed the executive order called DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that gives basically some of the things that students and young people would have gotten under the DREAM Act, provided they were under 31, came before their 16th birthday, graduated high school, or working on their GED or their high school diploma, and not having a felony conviction, and having been here at least 5 years. 400,000 young people have been approved for DACA. And what happened, President Obama would sign it. So, it didn't just happen. What was the force behind it? Young people like this saying, "Aquí estoy, soy ilegal, arrest me." No fear. They kept fighting, and it was signed. But it's far from perfect. Not everyone that's applied has been granted. Certainly many people that could benefit from it just missed the cutoff. Maybe they were 31 when the day it was signed. Maybe they came on their 16th birthday. Maybe they pled guilty to something they shouldn't have pled guilty to. But it's something. But it's only deferred action. In other words, the government is saying, okay, we see you, we know where you are, we're not going to deport you, we'll give you permission to work with a security guard, you'll get a driver's license. However, if you do something else to violate the law, you can't be deported. And they have to reapply for 2 years. And it doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't lead to citizenship, doesn't lead to a green card, doesn't lead to anything permanent. But it's better than nothing. It's made hard on that, as they say. So it's better than nothing. So that was a huge victory last year. After that, here in Illinois, we had the driver's license bill. What a tremendous, tremendous victory that was. So many people get put in removal proceedings because they get stopped, I say driving while Hispanic, right? Driving while not Caucasian, and they get pulled over, they don't have a driver's license. Why? Because they're not a Social Security. Why? Because they can't get one, even though they may have been here 10, 15, 20 years. So what was happening is many of these suburbs, like Waukegan, like Carpentersville, like Aurora, like Elgin, had a cooperative agreement with ICE, with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that they would notify ICE when they apprehended someone that was not here with papers. And these communities were getting money because of the '96 law to do that. Fortunately now, because of the bill that Governor Quinn signed, starting very soon, probably in October, the undocumented will be able to get a driver's license in Illinois, which will allow them to do what? They will drive their kids to school, drive to the hospital, go to the store, drive to work, without having fear that they're going to be turned over to immigration. Let's talk real quick about what's happening. This year, after a lot of compromise, a lot of battle, Senate Bill 744 was passed in the Senate. Senator Kirk voted for it. He was on the fence for a long time, a lot of pressure, but he voted for it. The bill at one point was put together by a group called the Gang of Eight, which included 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. Not perfect by any means, like Mark was saying. It blossomed or grew into 1,100 pages. Billions of dollars for enforcement, for drones, for prisons, all that kind of stuff is in there. But also a path to citizenship for the undocumented. The undocumented were here, the person here as of December 31st, 2011, no felony convictions, they can apply, get permission to work, permission to travel. Get a status for 5 years, have to pay back taxes, have to show that they have a clean record, have to show that they are learning English. It's going to be tough for a lot of people to get through this. And the fees are going to be rather substantial. So it's not perfect, but it's far better than what we have today. Now, what will happen in the House of Representatives? Well, how many of you have heard of John Boehner? You know who John Boehner is? Speaker of the House. His immediate predecessor was Nancy Pelosi. Prior to her was Dennis Hassard. Who knows who Dennis Hassard is? Heard of the Hassard Rule? Hassard Rule, when he was Speaker of the House, was that he would not bring a bill to the floor to be voted on unless the majority of Republicans were in favor of it. So Mr. Boehner is exercising the Hassard Rule in 744, the Senate bill. And so he said, I'm not going to bring it to the floor. Last Monday, a week ago Monday, Congressman Goodlatte, who is from Virginia and the chair of the Immigration Subcommittee, said he's going to do everything he can to fight the Senate bill. And he's diametrically opposed to a path to citizenship for the undocumented. The full path, by the way, under the Senate bill is 13 years. It's 10 years of this status of trying to get everything paid and everything done. After that, all the quotas used up and you're at the back of the line, as Mark said, then you can become a full lawful permanent resident. And 3 years after that, a U.S. citizen. So it's 13 years at the best from undocumented to U.S. citizen, if the Senate bill becomes law. Not perfect, but far, far better than what we have today. So, you've heard about it earlier today. How can you get involved? Well, very simple. Silence is acceptance. If you like 1,100 people being deported every day, if you like 400,000 people being deported every year, if you like our country spending $16 billion to tear families apart, that's a situation like, don't do anything. Be quiet, be silent. Remember though, silence is acceptance. Silence in the face of evil, and this is evil in my humble opinion, silence in the face of evil is being a co-conspirator. Don't be a co-conspirator. Be an advocate. How do you do it? Very simple to send an email, and you can do it every day. Find out who your congressman is. It's Congressman Lipinski. Find out what his email address is, and send him an email. Call him up. Go visit his office. Let him know how you feel. There was just a march on his office on Tuesday from a parish in Berwyn to his office. Become active. Come any Friday that you like out to Broadway. We pray the rosary at 7:15, and after, one Friday a month we have an interfaith service. We have representatives from the Jewish religion, other Christian denominations. We often have a Muslim there with us, or two or more. And we pray for those being deported, those still detained, and their families, and we recommit ourselves to pray, hope, and work for compassionate immigration reform, and then to this very expensive, inhumane, draconian system that's caused such suffering. It's causing suffering to his family right in front of us here, and so many, many others. So please, be active. Educate yourself. Lots of websites you can read about it. There's articles all the time. Now, maybe you saw the article in Monday's Tribune. Front page article saying that, or was quoted on the front page, but the article is inside the paper, saying that support for immigration reform is waning. And it said that many Republican congressmen in their districts were hearing nothing from their constituents on immigration. That's got to stop. Another study was done here in the Midwest, said that we're the only area of the country where more than 50% oppose the path to citizenship. Why is that? Why is that? Because I think not enough of us are passionate zealots like these two women here, out there talking every day about the families they see being ripped apart, about the suffering that's happening, about how we have to change this. There's an old expression that mercy institution, right? Mercy is twice blessed, right? Who does it bless? The person that receives the mercy and the person who's giving it. If that is true, my life is certainly talking that it is, then the opposite is true as well. Withholding of mercy is twice punished. Who does it punish? The person that so desperately needs the mercy and the person refusing to give it. Cruelty is expensive. $16 billion a year. Lost income, lost taxes. At the same time, we're talking about creating a permanent underclass as we rip families apart. So please don't be silent. Be be active in this fight. Help us change this. Thank you very much.